All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that is committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles as introduced by Sydney Banks to people throughout the world. And today we are so happy and delighted. The webinar title is Peace of Mind Through Understanding. And we have Claire Shutes and Julian Fraser, who are founders of the Almond Tree Foundation. Julian and Claire share how the understanding of the three principles provides deep peace of mind, even in the midst of stressful situations. They both have personal experience with illness and disability and truly understand the challenges involved. Their mission is to help others thrive no matter their circumstances. And so they founded the Almond Tree Foundation, which provides free online events and recordings that offer well-being support and education, and that create a safe space for discussion and comfort. One other note before we begin, this webinar is a prelude to the 3PGC online event, Finding Peace in Times of Chaos, taking place next month, November 8th through the 10th. And we're also really delighted to have 3PG board member Derrick Mason, who will be facilitating this today. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Derrick.
Thank you for that, Tom. Thank you for that. And yeah, like Tom said, this is a prelude to an event we've got coming up called Finding Peace in Times of Chaos, where we'll be highlighting stories from all over the world of how people can manage to find peace and their version of peace through what they deem as chaos. We have in this little opener, like a pre-opener, with Claire Shutes and Julian Fraser, because I think their story speaks to exactly what we're talking about. And like Tom listed, the Almond Tree Foundation, which does some amazing work, and the list is long. And you would think that would have come from intellect, or that would have come from. But I think if I'm just going to hand it over to Julian and Claire to share their story on how they started that foundation and what was the motivation behind it. And oftentimes when we look behind that, we can find what can outside look like chaos, but that we can find a level of peace that we can manage to find a way to spread and give others hope that they can manage to find a peace. And sometimes we get caught up in the circumstances, but if we just focus on the feeling behind it, then I think that's the inspiration and that's the beauty. And I know Claire and Julian personally, and yeah, I just find them two beautiful souls, and just to hear them share their story, I think we can get into that space and start to feel a bit of that peace, no matter where we are. So Claire and Julian, whichever one wants to share, yeah, just what motivated you to start the Almond Tree?
Julian, should we start with how we met?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's relevant, isn't it? So Julian and I met a long time ago, probably, I don't know, 2010 maybe before then, a long time. And we were like we were two of the 10 people on Aaron and Mara and Linda's first practitioners course, along with various other people who you'd know, and that's kind of where we met properly. I think we met before that, but that's where we met properly, and obviously that was quite an intense course. It was really wonderful, and we started talking then, didn't we, about how we could use our experience to help others. So for those who don't know me, as Derrick said, my name is Claire. I am a master transformative coach, for want of a better. I have a certificate to say that. I came across the principles, as I said, in 2010. I've studied with a great number of people since then, and also been on faculty for a number of three principles based courses. I was born with something called cerebral palsy, which came from being born early. I stopped breathing, and then part of the information that told my brain how to control my legs was essentially wiped out. And so I had to learn how to walk again. And I can walk, but I don't walk in the way that everyone else does. I walk in a perfect way for me. But it's been my biggest tool for spiritual growth. I think fundamentally that would be the easiest way of saying. And it's continually evolving and continually deepening. And then, I don't know, maybe, Julian, do you want to talk about how we have, what we have in common in that area?
Yeah. So thank you, Derrick, for the introduction as well. That was a really lovely introduction. I was very touched by that. So about me a little bit, as you know, you've given an introduction to you, Claire. So my name is Julian. As Claire said, I was on the first Three Principles Professional Institute, as it was called then, in 2010 with Claire, and then later went on to, as Claire said, also be on faculty for various other Three Principles based programs. So I've been involved with the principles for, I guess, in excess of, around 20 years. One of the things that kind of brings Claire and I together, as she said, is disability. So I have a daughter, my second child. She was born not breathing. She came out not breathing, as Claire said, very similar. She has also cerebral palsy. She is much, the way it impacted her, I mean, it damaged her brain in far greater ways than Claire. So she has quadriplegia, and that she it's affecting all her limbs, and also her speech, and also her mental capacity in some ways as well. So she requires around waking care effectively. So she can't walk. She struggles talking. She can't, bath herself, feed herself, look after herself in many ways. And so, when that happened, we went into the hospital expecting a very normal birth because she was our second child. The first one was perfectly normal, and it was very, life-changing in around 10 minutes when she wasn't breathing. And actually our third child, he has autism and ADHD and some behavioral issues, so that kind of creates different problems. So, she's 21, he's 19. We have now two other children after them who are very as normal, whatever that means. So we have 5 children in total, and over the years, let's say with Claire, that common bond in a way has kind of spurred many conversations between us. The truth is, I'm trying to think which came first, but I had certain instances in my life where I felt and I came across various people who were through again random things, but also just again with my daughter and her disability, certain groups. I come across parents who are really struggling, and being involved with the principles, I felt there's definitely a way that we can be of service to help them, and I would talk to Claire about that. At least this is kind of from my memory. Please throw in something if I get it wrong, Claire, because my memory's not so good. But this is how the general feeling of it is that we would have conversations about doing something, and Claire's got her own life and her own kind of coaching business, and I was involved with the 3P UK conference and other my own work commitments as well. so it was always something that we would speak about. And then I guess that voice, that noise kind of got stronger, and we both kind of felt that could do something about it. And we decided that we would start up the Almond Tree Foundation, which is a non-profit organization to help people caring for someone sick or disabled, sick, disabled, ill, basically for the carers, supporting carers. And Claire and I it started out as as we call it, like a passion project. It's definitely a part-time endeavor. This is not something that we take any money from. We don't, we dedicate, a day a week to kind of working on these projects and these ideas and building our community and recordings and website. And we did that in 2020, but I think our first event was in 2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's grown from there, with help and support from various people who including Linda Pransky and we also had Elsie record a video for us, a story of hope. So we've built up first of all, we built up a community of people who are caring for someone. It's open to anyone, effectively, but it's primarily for people who are caring for someone, and also open to people who might be, in the sick and disabled category themselves. But our focus is to try and help provide well-being to people who are caring for others, because we know that is I don't know what you want to call it, but a group of people who are facing difficult circumstances, as the events, that they are facing chaotic circumstances in many cases, and that can be stressful and difficult for them. And so we want to help that community primarily find some peace of mind. Have I missed anything out there?
No, I don't think so. I think that's really comprehensive. I think we were also very lucky because Julian and I had like very little idea. We had an idea, and we knew that there was something we could. There was an area of a group of people who we could impact, but we had no idea what we were doing at all, like zero. And both of us are not particularly, like, some people love giving webinars, some people like love being on stage and love being out there, but neither of us, I would say neither of us are particularly, it's not our most comfortable place to be. So we spent a lot of time talking about it and not doing that much. That's why, although it was incorporated in 2020, it didn't really get going until 2021. And we had so much. I mean, I'm telling you, the reason I'm telling you this is because, let's say someone might listen to this who's thinking of starting up something, and they might have some similar thoughts. So that's why I'm mentioning this. So despite this, we kept getting over ourselves. And for me, the one thought that helped me get over it more than anything was when I just imagined one person that I might be able to impact. The fact that I might be able to impact one person kept me going. And then we were really, really lucky, because it just so happened that around the same time, George Pransky had his stroke, and Linda, unbeknownst to us, was looking for a place in which she could also share her experience. And we did a conference, a talk together that went really, really well. And then we asked her if she would mind helping us with the Almond Tree, and she was like, sure, So then for the first couple of years, all the webinars we did were not just Julian and I, but they were Julian, I, Linda, and sometimes George. And as Julian said, all of our stuff is free to access. All you have to do is sign up. And there's some very, very interesting conversations that are available there, that because of the nature of Linda and George's depth of understanding are very, very profound. So I highly recommend them. And because we're coming from a place of pure service, as Julian said, we haven't made a penny out of this. We applied for a lottery grant in England, which we got at the beginning, and then which really helped with day-to-day costs. We're just talking about day-to-day costs, so website costs or Google costs or that kind of thing. And then we needed to raise a bit more money, so we did a kind of I cycled for 10 kilometers with my daughter Tara walking beside me, and Julian pushed Hasia in her wheelchair for 10K. And through that process, people were very generous, and we managed to raise enough money to keep going. So that's kind of how it works. And then we started, sometimes you just need a bit of luck with these kind of things. So I was sitting one day in my hairdresser, and the guy who owned the salon said, "Oh, I'm running a marathon for something called Scope. Would you mind sponsoring me?" And I was like, "Sure." So Scope, for anyone who doesn't know that, is the biggest disability charity in the UK. And and I said to him, "I'm really delighted to sponsor you. That'd be great. But how come? How come you're doing this? Because and he said, "Oh, it just so happens that the chairman of the board of trustees is my client, and so I'm doing it for him." And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. And then I said, I was really cheeky, and again, I'm telling you this story for people who are thinking of setting up things, and I just really want to get across the organic nature of what's happened for us, because now we have about 700 people on our mailing list, and it is literally international. So we have something called community drop-ins, where people just show up and share whatever is on their mind, and they, as well as there being the recorded resources that I mentioned before, the community drop-in is really well attended, because it's a really safe space for people to say things that they wouldn't otherwise feel comfortable saying maybe in public, and for other people to go kind of, "Me too, yes, I hear you," or "Yes, me," and that is such a profound thing. So anyway, back to my story about my hairdresser. And so I said to him, I run something called the Almond Tree, and it would be, there's something you could really do. And also I run something called the Almond Tree, and we're doing this sponsored cycle, because it was the same time as a sponsored cycle. And he said, "Oh, I'll be happy to sponsor you." I said, "That would be really great, but actually I don't really want you to sponsor me." He did sponsor us. I said, "What would be really great is, could you introduce me to the guy who's your client? Because that would be really, really helpful." So I was really, really cheeky, but I'm not beyond being cheeky. And anyway, so through that introduction, we essentially it took quite a while, but through that introduction, we now have a partnership with Scope, in which we are, working with them. And that's a really fantastic thing, because that broadens our network, and it broadens our reach, and we'll see where that gets to. We're going to do a 3-part series for them starting next month. And it's just exciting stuff. And it's just, I'm sure the fact that we kind of have nothing on it apart from service has a huge, well, in my world, has a huge amount to do with that. We just try things out. We just have a go, and it's been profoundly helpful to people. Do you want to say something, Julian, about the kind of response we get from people? Because I don't want to just keep on talking.
Yeah. So, well, it's difficult to know where to start. I don't just want to kind of say, we have an impact. We ask for feedback continuously on what we're doing. As Claire said, we're kind of making this up as we go along, and we recognize, or we've seen, that the power of the community is really helpful for people. There's lots of, kind of, and again, this is kind of, from a marketing point of view, there's loads of people that say, yeah, community is really important. But as Claire pointed out, the community here is important from a from a well-being perspective, like Claire said, so people want, the community drop-ins, Claire said, people come along because they feel an affinity, even though people are in different circumstances. So, not everyone's, struggling with, the cerebral palsy. But in fact, most people are not. But the way that they can share in those groups and ask questions and just feel supported by us and each other is very unique. And they're not the conversations that people have outside of that. So we ask for feedback all the time, and the feedback on literally everything that we do, even on the videos, we kind of have feedback, kind of buttons and pages, because we want to hear ideas. We want to get a sense for what people are hearing and how people are doing, and the response has been very good, very good. We have regular people that come to the groups who are very touched and changed by what's happening, like by the differences that they're seeing. I'm thinking about one specific person, she has transformed, I think it's fair to say, over, a period of time that she's been with us. And again, I'm not sure, in fact, I know she wouldn't have grown in that way and found that peace of mind without the sessions that we've been doing, because she comes regularly and she contributes and always asks a question and always shares, and you could probably watch them and see the change in growth in her if you were watching from the start. I feel like that's true, Claire, no? Just reflecting on it like that.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So the common things people come with. So a lot of people who are living with disability or illness, either as a carer or someone who has something themselves that they're living with, the common themes are isolation. They feel very isolated. They feel misunderstood. They feel marginalized. They feel scared about the future. They feel lonely. They feel misunderstood. They often are suffering with feelings of anxiety or depression or overwhelm or lack of time for themselves, lack of space for themselves. And with all of those things are really profoundly helped through an understanding of the principles. And that is because, as we know, all of those things originate from how people are thinking about their situation. And we show them that there is more than one way to look at something. We show them that we teach them about their state of mind. We teach them about fluctuations in clarity of thinking. We teach them about how the mind works. We teach them about their psychological operating system. This is all different ways of saying that we're teaching them the principles, okay? We help them to see that it's possible to have peace of mind regardless of circumstances. We give them a vision. We're very, very based on providing hope for people, moving people in towards the deeper feelings of life. So things like hope or gratitude or possibility. And that's, that is something that really, really helps to float people and move them to a different level of consciousness and therefore a different understanding of their world. And we don't per se teach the principles, but we are always, our foundation is the principles. And everything that we speak about comes from that space. And it's so beautiful to teach people. Basically, we're just educating people, but it's so beautiful to provide that education. And as Julian said, to see the visible shifts in people over time. people can often start to come and feel completely overwhelmed, completely lost and completely desperate. And then they suddenly, after a period of time, can be like dealing with the same circumstances in a completely different way. And not only are they dealing with them, they're thriving within them. And they're beginning to appreciate parts of the gift of being a carer. There's a gift in it. There's a really beautiful, so part of what we do, there's lots of different areas of our website, and there's a part of our website called Stories of Hope, where we literally have got essentially, we've got people who are all trained three principles practitioners, or whatever term to be used. I've been told that's not the term people are using these days. But anyway, all people who have a three principles understanding are sharing it in the world. And they're all talking about their own personal experience around caring. And they're all really amazing. As Julian said, there's Elsie on there. We've got Elsie, we've got Michael, we've got all sorts of people. And we have a very beautiful one with Marina, where she's talking about what an honor it is to be with her mother before her death. And that is I couldn't possibly do it justice. You just have to listen to it, but it's very, very beautiful. And sadly, since then, her mum has passed on, but she was very generous in the way in which she spoke about that. We have Rahini, who also did an amazing story all about self-care and what she learned about her own self-care while she was supporting her husband through something. And they're just wonderful. Basically, they're wonderful examples of what's possible. And when people get a vision for what's possible, that in itself is an extremely hopeful thing.
For me, do you know what? That's just the most amazing, beautiful set of events or circumstances which just led you to find this beauty from that space within yourself, and then to find the strength, because I see the principles works on so many different levels of how we see it. Because it's all coming from this thing that I just kept on getting from you guys. It's just so organic. It's just so just in the moment, and it doesn't have to go anywhere, but let's just see where it does. And the way Julian described it, oh, just conversations. And it could stay conversations for how long? Until things start to fall into place. But it's that thing that you've seen within yourself, what you know within yourself. Because even the circumstances, I find, we sort of think we can't handle certain things. And we think that if it was to come our way, we would react a certain way. But when we see that we've got that space to come through any set of circumstances and not just be in the circumstances and say, I'm going to be okay. Just by being in that space, we can start to, like you said, Claire, just one person. And when Julian's talking about the lady who comes and sits down and asks certain questions and just giving that person that little bit of different space to look into. It hasn't got all the answers. It don't make things perfect. It doesn't change the circumstances, but it just gives us that little bit of space just to move through and just staying true to the organic nature. Because when we was talking a few weeks ago, when you lot told me how much time you lot got jobs and you lot do other things, and it sort of astounded me to know that just from that organic nature and just from that being in the flow, you can have so many people on your books and so many people impacting. I think that's so beautiful. And this is something what I've got to see with this understanding. And we can see beauty absolutely everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. If we're prepared to look, and it's like what you said, Claire, just give people that hope and know that if that's over there, then what's over here? My version of chaos or my version of peace, I must be able to find that. I must be able to see a way through that. And I think it's what you're hitting as well, just the organic nature of it. And we don't know where it's going to go. We don't know what's going to happen, where it's going to lead to. And sometimes we have to be a bit cheeky. Just take that chance when we see it.
I think life is always giving us opportunities. It just depends whether we choose to take them or not. I think the abundance of, how life moves with us if we move. And for me, coming from the foundation of service is really, really key to this. Because as you said, I don't have a particular agenda, but I do have an understanding of some things. I understand that when people see how they how their world is created. That's really helpful. I understand that when people connect with the fact that they're actually a psycho-spiritual being, that's even more helpful. I understand that when when you are able to create a space where people feel really heard without judgment, really give them the space to talk and just talk and get reflective and be loved through whatever they're going through, that is profoundly helpful. And not only is it helpful, it's profoundly healing. And I also understand the collective energy of a group. So, you know, in our community drop-ins, people will be sharing their stories, right? And someone might be there and they'll have a completely different set of circumstances, but they will resonate with the essence of the story because it's all human experience. So we happen to be focusing on disability and illness, but it doesn't really matter. It could be anything. The same set of emotional, I don't know what word to use, triggers, not even triggers, but the same set of emotions are happening within all of us, regardless of our circumstances. And then also what I understand very strongly is that, and this is something that I've learned, and I'm sure Julian has learned this too, but something I've learned through my cerebral palsy is how resilient I am. Like it is like a spiritual fact for me. Resilience isn't just like a good idea. I know that we're resilient. And what I mean by resilient is that we are adaptable. We have the ability to adapt and overcome whatever's thrown our way. We are infinitely creative and resourceful, and so much is possible. And we see that in our community over and over again. And that touches me so deeply.
I mean, for me, I mean, I guess, you know, kind of looking in this direction a little bit, I'm over the years, like I was saying, I come across people who are really struggling. And my perspective is to want to help and you know to help people, like really just to be helpful to those people. And it's interesting what you were saying about service, because it's like I never really thought about it in this way, but we've not created an organization to, you know, make money, to raise money. That's not a focus here. It's a necessary, you know, byproduct of having an organization is that you need to pay bills, insurance, and running costs and other things. But that's not the point of why we're here. So we're not interested in taking the money out. It's literally, can we help the people that I come across? And I relate to them all. Like I can remember meeting specific people and hearing specific things. Like there was a time, and I'm going to talk about, maybe there might be someone listening to this who would know her, Wendy Sajisi. She had she used to be a speaker on the 3P UK conference. She was from San Diego, and she had stage 4 cancer. And you know, I can't remember what year it was, but I did a session with her about illness and well-being. And I mean, she was amazing. You know, she passed some time after that. But I remember driving to the session that morning with her, and there was a lady on the radio talking about exactly this. You know, she'd given birth to a child that was injured at birth, and she was, you know, it still sticks in my mind that she was grieving for the child that she never had, you know, and that was it was a very powerful and moving story. And I could see in her the pain and distress she was in, and that I had some, as Claire was saying, resilience in myself and some well-being in myself that could have been me, you know, but for this understanding, or but for this way of seeing life, that would be me, because the circumstances were, you know, exactly the same. And I've come across, you know, parents through these groups, as I said, where, you know, people who are in similar circumstances, but are suicidal. And we read about these stories all the time, Claire and I. And to me, that is the motivation. Like, I'm trying to, Claire was talking about she wants to help one person. Like, to me, it's like I know that there are these people out there who not out there. I mean, I meet them, as well as like listening on the radio, but just these random things. You bump into these people, you don't generate them. Claire's talking about a hairdresser, just like the universe is. I feel like the universe is speaking to me, and I feel driven in a way to kind of do something about that. And as the voices get louder and these circumstances get louder, we put it into practice and we build on it. And I can say even today, that's impacting me. I was having a conversation with Claire earlier about a particular aspect that I felt that I needed to move towards in terms of what we're doing. That's I mean, that's where I'm coming from. That's where we're coming from. And I think you're right. Like, from that space and from that feeling, it doesn't, like, we don't have a set of financial targets. We don't have a set of physical targets. We're not looking to have a certain number of people. We haven't got these kind of goals. We're not looking to do a certain number of programs or different webinars or videos, or it's not a production thing. It is a service thing, and we will move and grow in that way, in the way that feels right for what's needed. At least that's how it looks to me.
Do you know?
At the moment, I think it would be true to say that we are definitely because we have such a body of work on the website that is supportive and helpful to people, and because it's completely free to access. At the moment, we're trying to get ourselves more known. We're on a kind of outreach mission. So that's definitely part of what I'm thinking of. So I'm keeping myself very open and noticing opportunities as they come up.
Yeah,
And also another thing, going back to people who might be thinking of doing something, I think it's really, really important not to take anything personally. I think that's such a huge thing, because it took a while for us to get to where we are with Scope, and we just kept going, didn't we? We just kept going.
Claire is very persistent.
Well, but not in a pushy way.
No, I know.
Not in a pushy way.
Just consistent. No, just consistency.
Yeah, I was just really consistent. It reminds me of that scene in Julian and I were laughing about that scene in Shawshank Redemption. I don't know if you've ever seen that amazing, amazing film, but there's a film where he wants part of the film where he wants a library. And he just keeps writing letters, and I don't know how many years he does it for, but eventually gets his library. And so, because it's not personal, especially if you're dealing with big organizations. There was a time a few years ago when I decided I wanted to do some work with a charity. And because I was very interested in working with a particular cohort, it was essentially to do with homeless young people. And it took a year and a half to get in there. But I was just didn't take anything personally, just kept going, just kept in view that one, again, it was like one young person whose life was going to be really impacted by it. And I just kept going, and I started off working with one person on it, and they kind of gave up or had to move on to other things. And so then I changed partners, but it just so happened that the partner was perfect. And I just kept, so I'm just saying to people, if you feel moved to do something in the world with the principles, keep following that feeling and don't get discouraged, and don't take it personally if it doesn't happen as quickly as you feel it should be happening or might happen.
You know what? I was gonna say before that just listening to you guys, it's just so inspirational on a level where, like I said, what I see on my table and what I see you guys not just having that level to just survive, but to thrive and to create and to be and to spread and to share and show that peace and love. It's just so inspirational for people to hear. And I think the things that you're saying are so key as well, Claire. And we don't know how it's gonna share, how it's gonna show up. We don't know what it's gonna look like. But we get these little knockbacks, we get these little circumstances what show up for us. We just follow to do what's right. And if it means knocking on the door every morning, then we knock on that door every morning. Just to get that feeling like what Julian's saying, that not just one, but then another one and another one. And just know that same, what is so beautiful is that same feeling through those circumstances, what I know you felt, you can see that in somebody else's eye. You can see they've given them just that space to go and do whatever it is they want with that bit of space. And that could look like coming back every week. That could look like just finding that little bit of space to find a bit of peace in their day to day. And the beautiful thing, we don't know what that looks like for anybody else. But I know that when I hear your words, I know that it's capable for me. 100% is capable for me. And that is the beauty that I see in it. Yeah, and just hearing you guys' stories just kick something to that deep. And you said it as that resilience. When we know the depths of our resilience, and we see it, and that shows up for you. Maybe I'm being resilient and I'm walking uphill with this big bag, but to other people that just looks like a bright, shining, just wow! Look at that! Look at that! I just got to say that, man. It's so inspirational.
I think it's really, and I think that another part of this is that how's the best way to say this? The principles in themselves have inherent power. So I did this whole project that Derrick was involved in, and I was told very categorically in this project that it shouldn't be spiritual in any way. So it's not a spiritual thing, and I made every endeavor to make sure that nothing was mentioned at all to do with God or spirituality or anything like that. But when people listened to it, they heard it anyway. They heard it anyway. Because the feedback was, wow, there's something deep here. There's something really deep that's being pointed to, or people talked about spirituality, and it was fascinating to me. It wasn't surprising to me, but it was a very, very real life example of how you can go into an incredibly corporate and secular environment and talk about this stuff in a very pedestrian way, let's say. And yet yet the inherent message that is coming through will still be heard. It will still be heard. And that to me is amazing. Derrick, you're muted.
Yeah.
I'm too old to be doing that. No, I think that's the beautiful thing about this understanding as well, is that is within that space and just knowing that the principles can break down boundaries or this understanding, how you want to say it's the principles or it's the spiritual nature of it, or it's just just something that just breaks down all barriers. And it's not a category where it has to stay over there, or it can only be done in business, or it's too spiritual for business, or it's too intellectual for this, or it's when we drop into that space, and I just felt it when you was talking, Claire, that space of truth, that's when we can hear what we need to hear. And it touches us on some different levels. And it doesn't, the extremity of our situations don't really matter. They don't really matter. It touches everywhere. And it's deep. Just to hear it, I know the connective nature as well. Because just to hear you sharing, I feel that connection to my part of what I deem to be my little thing, and it looks nothing. It's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. And I don't know, we're
Can I
15
say
minutes
one more
left.
thing, Derrick?
Go on, you can say as much as you want, Julia.
I just don't know, because I know we're going to go to questions, but I just wanted to say one thing, just listening to you there. And again, kind of what Claire was saying earlier, like I'm saying this um, because I know people might consider this orientation. I'm not saying people do it, but I'm just saying people might consider it. So people might say, well, I want to be a coach or I want to create an organization through the principles. I want to share the principles. Now, where can I do that, or how can I do that? And I kind of feel like that's that's not where we're coming from. And it's kind of similar to what I was saying again. Like, we are sharing the principles, of course we are, right? But the motivation is not to share the principles. The motivation is to help people, like that. And that there's a big difference with that, you know. And the way that we share, and the orientation and the feeling that we're coming with is authentic, because we're not looking to share the principles. And I think it's important to point that out to people, because I know I think people can kind of get confused with that. At least that's my impression.
No, do you know, that's a good point as well, Julian. And that's something what, again, you lot have pointed to continuously, that organic, just staying in the flow of the, because we could have a long list of people and we could have all these expectations of what we think we have to do. And now it has to be about the money. We're still doing good work, but it's just we have to cover this and we have to do that now. And we sort of get it back to front. But you're always driving it from the front foot, just off service, just off
Yeah.
service. And it's that song, We Will Survive. We will survive. If we just know we'll be of service, it's the universe, stuff comes in our way, stuff works out. And it's to have that faith and trust in what we've seen in ourselves, to spread that. And that's the principle shows up everywhere, if that's what you want to call it. And then we just can be wherever we need to be. But I think that's so important, Julian. And people can, our intellect can grab hold of that really quickly and tell us what we have to do. But that feeling always draws us back to where we should be. I think that's lovely. Like I said, I don't know if anyone's got any questions or if there's anything in the chat, Tom.
Yeah, nothing in the chat yet, but if anyone would like to talk to our guest, you can raise your hand. And if you don't know where that is, down below, there's a react button that you can click on, and then you'll see the option to raise your hand. So this is a beautiful opportunity. Okay, Dennis, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
I was going to say I did it just to see if I could do it. No, I don't have a question, but I wanted to say I really, as I was listening, I was really appreciating the patience that I just feel coming from the both of you with this endeavor that you're working on. Um, I I know that I've kind of run into times where with people that I've worked with, it was just kind of like you knew that you didn't want to do too much with them. You just wanted to give them a little bit and let them go and soak it up in that. But I I heard your patience in that, and I wanted to let you know how much I appreciate with it. I haven't visited your website yet, but that's today. I'll see that right after this. Um, I had an image come to mind around the patients. I'm not a great cook. I make a mean grilled cheese, but I'm not a great cook. I've gotten better at making eggs. And one of the things that I learned is that eggs are best cooked on low heat and with a lot of patience. And so I just want to tell you how much I really appreciate your patience on this and how much I felt on it. A lot of strength in you too.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. For me, it is patience, but there's also, it's patience mixed with understanding. So what I mean by that is because I understand the power of what we are pointing people towards, that gives me infinite patience. Because all it takes is one glimpse, literally one glimpse. Like, what was the first thing? I think the first thing, all those years ago, when somebody said to me, you know, your thinking is creating your reality. And that was like, that the way in which it was said was just, it just really, really hit me. And then I went out and I experimented with that in my life to see whether that was actually true for me. And once I'd seen that, I couldn't unsee it. So what I really love about working in this way is that I know that it's transformative. Like before this, I was working as a different type of coach with a lot of different training, and that wasn't transformative. It was really helpful, like incredibly helpful. But I wasn't interested in just helping people. I was interested in is it possible for people to transform their reality and for it to be a long-lasting process? And for me, that this understanding is the only thing that I've come across that has that I can take into any environment and talk in many different ways. So I can take it into, people don't have to be people don't have to believe in anything in particular in order for it to impact them. And it's just the neutrality of it and the kind of simplicity of it. It's also really, really simple. And I love that about it. I never worry about, I never like have somebody come and work with me and I think, oh gosh, am I going to be able to do this? Or are they going to get this? Because I know it's not on me, because I'm pointing them back to something that's inherently inside them that's already working, and all they do is have to get a kind of glimpse of it. And to know it's just a profoundly joyful experience for me to see people remember who they are. And that, and in at the Almond Tree, a lot of people, as I said in the beginning, come basically with a lot of very scary thinking of different forms, which they believe and they've got caught up in. And for us to be able to say to them, actually, that's not written in stone. That's one way of seeing something. And actually, this is how it works. And for them to get a kind of more psychological freedom around their situation is just a really amazing thing.
Okay, we have Christelle. Go ahead, Christelle.
Thank you. I couldn't find the unmute button. Thank you. I just wanted to thank you so much for doing this work. I think I have a daughter that's she has a severe epilepsy. So she started out with all the abilities to do whatever, and now she's losing the abilities to do different tasks, and also her communication skills are decreasing due to all the seizures that she is having because it's so hard on her brain. And I've just I've found myself going away from all sorts of communities with people like in situations like mine, because a lot of the communities are very, like a little bit dark, and there's a lot of talk about that the doctors are not helping, and there's a lot of negativity, and it has just not, I just haven't found it helpful at all. And I just, the way that you were speaking about it and with the three principles, it's just a whole nother story. There's hope in it sounds like there's a lot of hope in your community. So I just wanted to thank you very much for making a community like that.
We'd love to
Thank you.
see you there if you feel
Yes.
we've got a community
Thank
drop in I don't know, I can't remember when it is.
3 weeks.
So 3 weeks. But please come along, because it's really lovely, and I think you'll really enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for
I
doing
know.
everything.
Thank you. I know Tom put it in the chat, but just for the video, so the website is the almondtree.org, O-R-G, the almondtree.org.
Yeah, great. And perhaps I think we'll probably have some information in the video underneath. I think we have time for one more, and let's go to Devish.
Oh, hello. Hi. Thanks, Tom. Hello, Julian, Claire, and everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry, look, I haven't got the camera. I'm lying in bed. I feel so self-conscious. It's Sydney. It's over 6 a.m. So, but I really, in reality, I really don't care. But anyway, the question, I've been coming to the Almond Tree for quite a few of your sessions whenever I have woken up for them, and they've always had a presence of warmth and understanding and the underlying joy. We're not talking pleasure or anything, but just the aliveness of being. And I'm glad you brought up, Julian, today, the difference, the subtle, or rather, quite be a big difference between sharing the principles on a professional level, or that is the ultimate intention, versus a transformational change in the willingness to be there in patience and presence. For I saw it when I attended one of your sessions, and I think it was with George and Linda there, and Claire, and I still like what Claire just said today about transformational versus helping. Just sorry, versus in my case, the words are this: transformational versus managing. And I can go so much into managing mode, this overwhelming, overthinking, worry, ruminating, everything, versus a transformational change. And Claire, at that time, it is still struck with me in my memory and heart. She said that thought, that negative, the insecure, it's like a hook, isn't it? Those are the words, Claire, you say. It's like a hook. Although we left it hanging in there because I was still thinking, then how do you get rid of that hook? But just the fact that you understood the hook, I remember I felt okay. So just you nudge me in the transformational direction. No, I'm not there at all. I don't know about insight, but I do know that conversations where you are, it it nudges us towards a transformation rather than managing. So thank you so much for your almond tree conversations.
Oh, Divyesh, I recognize you and I remember you, and thank you so much for coming along, and always welcome. Please keep coming.
I'm gonna come for the next session. Thank you.
Great.
Wow.
Derrick, thanks so much for inviting us to do this.
Yeah, that's been so wonderful. We're kind of at the top of the hour now. And before we close out, I want to give again Derrick a little chance to just repeat about the upcoming program in 3PGC. Now, but before I do that, let me make sure to remember the next 3PGC webinar is going to be happening in 2 weeks. And this is going to be really special. It's going to be a few people from our French community, Isabelle Karate and Jasmine Debian. And that is going to be happening, let me just make sure I've got this correct. It's going to be happening on the 22nd, Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and you can work out your own time from there. And So hope you can join us. And before we close, Derrick, do you want to just say another few words about
Yeah,
program?
I would have. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you, Tom, for your assistance and hosting, and thank you, Claire and Julian, for coming and sharing. And I think this might have been to Divash's point earlier, that when you two talk, I hear a level of truth and I hear a level of trust in that truth, what you speak from. And it just inspires me to know that I can hear that coming from you. And it's just a beautiful thing. And like Tom said, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the up and coming event that this was a prelude to, which is Finding Peace in Times of Chaos. And that starts on November the 8th and runs until November the 10th. And if you visit our website, the 3PGC, you can find out more information on how to attend. But I think this has just been a perfect example of how when we just listen, we feel that peace. Because I feel more at peace now than I felt for a long time. When we hear that and the circumstances of the stories, what we're hearing, don't matter. It's the underlying feeling that inspires us, that motivates us, that drives us. And it's coming from that beautiful, beautiful space of peace and love, which I think Julian and Claire have just given an example of how that can flourish absolutely anywhere. So again, I want to thank you, Julian. I want to thank you, Claire. And thank you everyone for showing up. Thank you, Tom, again. Thank you and so
Thank you
much
for having
love.
us.
No, thank you guys.
Thank you.
And thank you, Derrick. And if you all would like to unmute yourself, if you want, you can say goodbye and thank you to our wonderful guest here.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thanks,
Thank
Julian.
you.